Welcome to the Pulse with Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancamano. Let's get you to the pulse on everything you need to know. Today's episode is brought to you by the Liberty Board of Realtors. You can find out more information at the link at the bottom of the screen. And also, the Dream Project. You can find out more information about our friends there at the link at the bottom of the screen as well. And as you can see, we are not in studio. We are at beautiful Maxwell Place Pier on a gorgeous day. And I'm super excited because joining us is the chairwoman of the Hoboken Democratic Committee, and that is Ms. Rachel Hodes. Rachel, how are you today?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I feel honored to be your first back to the pier guest here.
Exactly. And what a beautiful day to be out here, right?
Perfect. It's perfect.
Perfect. Aren't we lucky with the views here, by the way?
Amazing. They're incredible. They're one of Hoboken's best jewels, I guess we say.
Exactly. Well, it's been almost a year since you've been on.
Yeah.
We actually went back and looked. You were on late April. Mm-hmm. So welcome back, and hopefully we're going to have you on as a more consistent guest this year in 2021. So a lot has happened, Rachel.
What are you talking about? Nothing
politics.
Happened in the past year. Come
Exactly.
on.
A lot has happened, especially at the national, executive, and legislative branches, where we now have Democrats, and I'm pumping very, very lightly here, not to show the audience, in charge at both of those branches.
It's very exciting.
Exactly. So now that the Democratic Party is in charge of those two branches, what are some of your expectations, whether at the local, state, or national level, moving forward?
Sure. So I think we came into this administration really hoping for big change. And what we've seen is the Biden administration really taking the reins on trying to fix some of the problems that have happened in the past 4 years, handle the coronavirus pandemic, and get local communities like ours some of the support that they need. So I think we have a lot more to do and a lot more to see from the Biden administration, but I'm heartened to see the amount of work that has happened in just a short time already.
And, you know, you and I were talking off before the show, I should say, about some of those changes that are happening, such as gun control, which is as recent as just a few days ago.
Yeah.
I mean, and to me, to make this much of an impact, 3 months into your administration, it's certainly a promising start, let's just say.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we saw yesterday, as I was saying earlier, the Biden administration released 7 new ways that they are combating gun violence in this country. I think following the 2 most recent mass shootings, we're seeing that this is not a problem that's going away, and I'm very pleased to see the work that has been done on this issue already and what the Biden administration is doing to help keep us, our children, our neighbors, our communities safer.
And let's talk about an issue that hits home for everybody, and that's the American Rescue Plan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as local as it gets because you're putting money into people's pockets and extending other important measures. I mean, and he got it done relatively quickly. So
he absolutely did, and I think here in Hoboken, last night at the City Council, they introduced, the administration introduced a budget that included a lot of new investments from the American Rescue Plan. And I think for us here in Hoboken, we're going to see incredible investments in new projects, new initiatives, and also the city is going to be helped with some of the offset some of the revenue that we lost because of the pandemic. So we're going to feel it here on the local level, and I'm just really grateful to Congress and the Biden administration for making this happen.
Exactly. It has to be teamwork. Absolutely. Both branches. All right. Speaking of local, the other day, I believe Monday, the petitions were due.
Yes.
For
it was a big
local
day.
Democratic committee. And Rachel will tell you, and I was a committee man for 15 years or so. Fortunately, I'm no longer. Thank you. I miss you guys too. One of these days, hopefully, I'll be back on. But anyway, we had the petitions due for the race coming up this November.
Yeah.
I know it's a little early in the process because the petitions haven't been certified and so on and so forth. But how comfortable are you that all 80 seats will be filled on the Democratic side?
Yeah, so our election is actually in June. It's during the
June,
primary.
I'm sorry.
No, it's totally
November.
fine. I want to make sure that everybody who wants to get out and vote.
I was only on it for 15 years. My apologies. June.
Totally
yes.
fine. Totally fine. So like you said, we have 80 seats on the committee. We have 2 for each of the 40 districts here in Hoboken. And I can tell you that I helped work with a group of 68 people to put in petitions this year. I know that there are a few others that have been submitted as well. And so I'm hopeful that we'll have a good chunk of those 80 seats filled after the June primary.
Well, that's fantastic. And just in case there is an open district, I think it's important so people can find out who might be living in an open district. And again, actually, our political analyst, Josh Sotomayor-Einstein, did an extremely good job of explaining what a committee person does a few weeks ago on the show. And you basically represent a small part of your neighborhood, 4 or 5 blocks, square blocks, or a little bit more. But it's important to note that just in case there is a district that's open, there are options for people to take over not take over those districts, represent those districts,
Absolutely.
I should say, even after the petition filing deadline.
Absolutely. We're always looking for people to get involved, and if people are interested, they should definitely reach out to us. We have a website that has a form you can fill out, our email address, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can find us on all the things, and we'd love to hear from you. And even if there's not an open district where you live right now, it doesn't mean that there won't be something in the future, and it also doesn't mean that we can't work together on something. We've had lots of folks who aren't elected members of the committee who have really gotten involved with initiatives and efforts and really brought it to us and helped our committee do a lot of good work this year.
Absolutely. And write me down as one of those folks, please.
Oh, I got you. You're not rid of us
You
yet.
already have that information. Exactly. I think there are 2 ways for a person who didn't make the petition filing deadline to actually become a committee person in an open district. One of them is to actually write themselves in. They might actually win. If you have a partner, have your partner write you in as well.
Sure.
I mean, and then the other one would be at the reorganization meeting, which takes place in June, correct?
Yes. So we can fill vacancies at any official Democratic committee meeting. We do have a reorganization meeting that takes place the Monday after the June primary, where we can, as long as we have quorum, we can fill open districts. So, yes, we have that meeting in June, but we also have meetings throughout the year. So if folks come up and want to get involved and we have that opportunity, we can always make that happen.
So as long as there's a quorum and you have an official meeting, which of course goes through all the notifying processes and things like that.
Sure. There's a whole process.
It's a whole process in these open public meetings. You can fill those vacancies. Absolutely excellent. Well, we have a couple of minutes here. Why don't we talk about another huge race coming up at the state level?
Yeah.
Which of course is the governor's race.
Yeah.
Obviously the petitions aren't certified yet, so we don't really know who's running in the primaries. But let's talk about the 2 favorites right now, and that of course is Governor Phil Murphy, who is running for re-election on the Democratic side, against Jack Ciattarelli on the Republican side.
Yeah.
At the local level, especially during a governor's race, because it's winner take all, it's not by electoral college, it's just by popular votes. How important is it to motivate people in Hoboken and Hudson County, deep blue Hudson County, to make sure they go out and support Governor Murphy's re-election campaign?
It's incredibly important. I think we can't take anything for granted, even though we are a consistently blue county, a consistently blue town, a consistently blue state. It's not something we can take for granted. I think what we've seen in the past 4 years during Governor Murphy's first term is really some strong leadership. And so if people want to see that continue for another 4 years, we absolutely need to turn that vote out. And I'm hopeful that over the summer and in the fall, we'll be able to help get involved with some of those efforts.
Absolutely. Excellent job, Rachel, as always. I mean, I miss you as my chairwoman, but I was happy when I was a committee man that I voted for you, I think twice, to put you on there.
Yeah.
To put you as the chairwoman, I should say. Just one more time, a few seconds left here. Can you tell the audience where they can get more information about you or the Hoboken Democratic Committee specifically?
Absolutely. So HobokenDems.com is our website. It's the best place to go for some information. You can find us on Facebook, Hoboken Dems, Instagram, Hoboken Dems, and our email address is HobokenDemocraticParty@gmail.com.
Excellent. Well, get on there and visit their social media, like and follow them. After you like and follow the Pulse, of course, or do it at the same time. Rachel,
only takes a few seconds.
It only takes a few seconds to click. Thank you so much, Chairwoman of the Hoboken Democratic Committee. Really, really appreciate you coming on.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Absolutely. And hopefully we make this a monthly get-together, as we say.
Definitely. If you bring the weather, I'll bring the charisma. I don't know.
There you go. Well, we're going to need it because my charisma's been in the river lately. Anyway, all right, Rachel, thanks again. Have a great day.
No problem.
Folks, we will be right back. Peter Biancamano, your hostess with the mostest of the Pulse with Peter B. Folks, don't forget to go on our Facebook and our Instagram pages by searching The Pulse with Peter B, and like and follow us on each of those platforms. We're constantly updating those pages with previews of each week's segments and cool stories. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our email address at thepulsewithpeterb@gmail.com.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Joshua Sotomayor Einstein, on this segment of The Pulse. With us today, we have a wonderful guest, Petra, a student in the high school in Bayonne and student rep in the Board of Education there. Petra, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining us. Now, I know some months ago, maybe you can correct me in terms of the time, you were the victim of a certain number of death threats in something relating to the school or high school activism. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, Josh. So 9 months ago, I was running for the Student Board of Education representative position with Student Council. And I tend to have viewpoints that lean right. Some students have a viewpoint that lean left. Some couldn't care less, and that's perfectly fine. But it caused me to be a victim of a death threat that was made. Basically, the student body did not want, quote, a Republican representing them. I said, don't worry, I'm not voting on your healthcare plan or anything as Board of Ed rep, but that, didn't matter. And so they tried to impeach me once I won, and the school said, we can't do that. She won by a landslide, so you cannot just impeach her. And so then death threats started rolling in. It was very graphic, very continuous. I'm a I'm a supporter of the First Amendment, so you can say what you want to say, but when it takes a violent turn, that's when it stops, and that's when it needs to be reported.
So the chronology was you ran for student rep to the school board, which represents, so our viewers out there, every school board is elected, or at least in Bayonne it's elected, and the students in the high school, and correct me if I'm wrong, they get to elect a representative to that board. Doesn't have voting power, but represents the students at the BOE meetings,
Right.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so first you were elected. You were elected. Did you face any negative heat for your political viewpoint, during the election itself, or was it just afterwards?
No, it was during the election as well, but during the election it wasn't as violent as death threats. It was more just mean comments and cursing and whatnot. And again, I said, you don't have to like everybody. You have that First Amendment right to say what you want to say. I disagree with it. I think everybody should be respectful and not rude, but it wasn't a point where it was violent. But when I won, then when it started turning violent, they posted step-by-step instructions on how to make cocktails that explode and burn people alive, and they posted it, and they were like, burn her alive, destroy everything she's worked for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the
Very
death threats, they got very graphic.
And it's the worst type of cocktail. I know you're not old enough to drink yet, but one day you may discover that Molotov cocktails don't taste great. Worst type of cocktail. Not to make light of a horrible situation, but you have to be able to laugh at people, and unfortunately there are many adults that are just as dumb as kids making death threats. So I know, this last year we've been living through the time of COVID, and correct me if I'm wrong, most of the education has been online in Bayonne?
That's correct.
So what was the methodology or the transmission form of these death threats? Was it through online portals? Was it in person? Was it letters? How did it come to you?
They were directly sent to me. It was a lot, but mainly it was directly sent to me in my accounts. I remember I reported it immediately after it happened, and nothing was done. They said,
who did you report it to?
I reported it to the student council advisors because it was a death threat that happened following a student council event, which was my election. And then they took it to the principal, and the principal took it to the technology department to investigate. The tech department basically said, we can't do anything about it because it was done on a private device and not a public or school issued device. But then 9 months later, when I demanded answers and I demanded change, because this situation affected me, but not me alone. I had so many students reach out to me, so many parents, so many teachers, and they were saying, we have a problem with the way that we handle these situations, and we need a fix, we need to fix this problem. So I was like, I would feel guilty if I were to graduate and not bring this up and have a solution be discussed or talked about. So when I brought it up, and I tried to bring it up, they told me, you shouldn't speak about it publicly. We'll meet with you privately.
So just to rewind for
Right.
1 second, just for the chronology's sake. So as soon as it happened, you brought it to the administration and the school's attention. They said, not our business. Now, did you go to the police? Did you go to your parents? What was the next step after that?
So once they said that, I did go to the Bayonne PD, and I'm so thankful for our Bayonne PD because they got involved really quickly. They got the situation monitored under control, and because the kid kept pursuing, that path. He kept sending the death threats and whatnot, and the police department basically said enough is enough. They got the juvenile detective involved, and they monitored the situation and closed it. So the reason why I brought it up afterwards, though, was to fix the initial problem, the loophole that caused these death threats to go to be neglected by the school. And when I did, they didn't want me to talk about it. I don't know about you, Josh, but I think that when things happen behind closed doors, it's not for a permanent solution, it's for a temporary solution. So I wanted transparency, I wanted communication, because that's how you really get accountability. And I was forced not to say anything. And then basically I went up at the Board of Ed meeting, and after so many calls of don't say it, don't do it, I took the 3 minutes that they have at the podium, and I said, I was trying to bring this up.
Now, so you spoke at the Board of Ed
meeting
in capacity as a normal
as a
person,
student,
not as a student board rep.
No, and I clarified that too. But no, when I spoke there, I said I was trying to speak. I was trying to bring this problem up. We need to fix our policy. New Jersey's law does not protect students, their own viewpoints and opinions. So I'm like, we need to fix this issue, and we need accountability. And basically, I said I was requesting that time to speak. And they hushed me, and they said, thank you, thank you, thank you. That was the answer from the board president. And then they were very, very appalled by it. And then I called the tech department to find out. They were lying. They basically said, we were investigating the threat that happened on Twitter, and it didn't happen on Twitter. So I was like, how are you investigating something that's not there?
Wait, so the medium of the threat, the tech department of the school system in Bayonne was saying happened on Twitter when you had told them that it did not happen on Twitter.
No, it did not happen on Twitter. I don't know where they got Twitter from, but for 9 months now, apparently, they've been investigating it on Twitter. Then they said, on the same phone call, they go, oh, it wasn't, then can you tell us? And then they go, oh, well, Tim Carey's handling your situation. I'm like, who's Tim Carey? They're like, oh, it's the head of security. So the head of security apparently is handling it. I said, well, I've never heard of him. He never contacted me or my parents. They go, oh, well, that's because we don't know what happened. And I said, well, can I talk to him? Because now you're putting the blame on him. And they said, well, he wants your number. I don't know when that happened. And then I asked, I was like, well, can I have his number? It's publicly issued, right? And they go, no, he wants your number. They refused to give me his number. I haven't heard from him since. Then they pursued to force an HIB investigation on me.
What does HIB stand for the viewers out there?
It stands for harassment, intimidation, and bullying. So it's very timely. Basically, you have 10 legal days to file that HIB investigation. I know trustees have to take a mandatory lessons and trainings.
Board of Education members are called trustees.
Yeah, the trustees have to look at the trainings for HIB. They all know what it is. Teachers too. They have 1 day legally to report to the principal, 10 days to finish the situation. So 9 months later, they wouldn't give me an extension at the podium to talk for 7 minutes, but 9 months later, they wanted me to give them an extension for the HIB, which is illegal. So I said, I would have done the HIB, but the police already solve the situation. I don't feel safe. We're going back May 3rd. What happens if we both go back and I brought this up again and re-angered a student? I don't want to do that. I don't want to subject myself to that. Then they forced me and they said, oh, well, I'm sorry. The principal said, I'm sorry I misled you with my words, but it's mandatory now. So that's when I contacted a lawyer just to see, is it mandatory? Can they force me? And the answer was no. So when I said that, they said, well, never mind, you'll receive a letter saying that the investigation was stopped.
Wow. Real quick, we only got a little bit of time left. I know I personally have been the victim of cancel culture, this intolerance that comes usually from the left, not exclusively. How do you feel, and I know you're doing this to stand up for students that come in the future, but how do you feel about being the victim of a cancel culture attempt where they're trying to get you to quit your position because of your political views?
Listen, I think that politics is academics, and I think that we need to protect our kids' right to have that political opinion. I'm in classes that literally have the word politics in them, like political legal ed or AP US government and politics, right? So, politics will get brought up, and I think that we need a proper way to handle these issues because you're not going to agree with a kid every time. You're not going to agree with a student or a teacher every time, but we shouldn't resort to death threats. We shouldn't resort to canceling people, right? So I do think we need accountability. I think the board needs to be more transparent and communicative with the public. I think that we need a better system there to handle these issues, and I think that we need to fix our law to protect kids, to be able to express their viewpoints.
Well, that has been a riveting Very enlightening segment. Thank you so much, Petra, for coming on the show. I think we've all been enriched by that horrible circumstance that you're fighting for freedom and for the protection of students. Thank you so much for viewing, and stay tuned for the next segment of The Pulse.
Peter Biancamano back with you. Don't forget to watch us on cable access every Sunday and Monday at 9 a.m. Optimum Channel 18, Files Channel 46, and Comcast Channel 190. Also on Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m., you can watch our show on our YouTube channel, and you can also binge watch all of our old shows. Who doesn't want to keep watching The Pulse with Peter B? We'll see you there. Welcome back to The Pulse with Peter B. Peter Biancamano, back in the host chair. I want to thank Petra John last segment for her enlightening story, and I hope things get figured out over in the city of Bayonne, and to a much lesser extent, Josh, because nobody really cares about Josh. But people we do care about is we have a Pulse premiere this week, and that is our new pro wrestling insider, and that is my man, Rob Tonneson. How are you today, sir?
Good afternoon, sir. How are you? I'm doing well. It's happy WrestleMania week. Happy WrestleMania week, everybody.
Happy WrestleMania week to you. And since we do air on Sunday, we're going to skip the matches on Saturday night because it'll be old news by the time people are viewing this. So, and by the way, I like the way you got the look going. I see you're representing Luke Harper and Brody Lee.
Well,
God rest his soul.
Yes, absolutely. I had to rep out Brody Lee. Just a little shout out to him for everything he's done. So.
Exactly. All right, so it is WrestleMania weekend, as you know. We're going to focus on the Sunday matches, and we're going to jump right in. And that is two Canadian boys, correct? In Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens. Talk to me about it.
Not just two Canadian boys, two good French-Canadian kids. Listen, Sami and Kevin, if you follow them on Twitter like I do, they go back decades. So the fact that it's actually happening on WrestleMania is really, really cool. Sami Zayn has been doing the Lord's work on SmackDown with his documentary stuff, and Kevin Owens is just always a gem, and I'm very much looking forward to this. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn always are really good. I think about 4 or 5 years ago, they had a fantastic feud in the mid-card with Payback and all that other stuff. So I'm ultimately looking forward to seeing what they're going to do for WrestleMania, and I'm calling it right now. That pirate ship in Tampa Bay, I think Kevin Owens is going to jump off that.
You think he's going to jump off of that?
I think Kevin Owens is looked at that pirate ship and said, that is mine.
So Kevin Owens wins the match.
I would say Kevin Owens would go. I would say definitely Kevin Owens is gonna win that match, but with Logan Paul for some reason being at WrestleMania, it could be a little bit dicey, but I gotta go with Kevin. Sorry, Sammy, I do like you more on social media, but I gotta go with Kevin.
KO, okay, I like that. All right, moving on to the next match, you have Bray Wyatt, whose character is phenomenal in my opinion, against, I guess, the former Legend Killer, because he's now a legend in Randy Orton, the Viper.
My God, how old are we now?
Exactly.
I mean, I was just remembering Randy Orton versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 21, which is now 16 years ago. Good Lord. Anyway, yeah, so Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt have been having this on and off thing ever since the new Nexus with Husky Harris, which is a name not many people are going to remember out there.
I remember that. Exactly.
Thank you. So Bray Wyatt has this new fantastic character, The Fiend, where he's kind of like take the best of The Undertaker, the best of Kane, and make him like a video character with 1,000 cheat codes. Plus with Alexa Bliss, which is just a fantastic thing, so I'm happy she's doing it. Randy and Bray have been having this thing. Randy lit Bray on fire. That happened, because WWE is for kids.
Exactly.
So
other kids should be lighting other kids on fire.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Please do not try this at home. But so we have Randy and we have Bray and we have Alexa, and it's this thing that's been going on since October. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the climax. And at this point, Bray's been off TV for a while, so I gotta go with Bray on that one.
Bray Wyatt, I love it. I absolutely do. All right, the next one is See, it's a women's match. I don't want to call it a divas match.
No, they're not divas
because
anymore.
they're not divas anymore. They are women wrestlers who have really come a long way during the women's revolution, as they say, and that's Asuka versus Rhea Ripley. Now, Rhea Ripley has been getting kind of a push, I feel, since her days at NXT, which wasn't that long ago, and of course, Asuka is the current champion. It's an interesting match because two different styles, right or wrong, Rob?
Both strong style. I mean, Asuka's been just this beautiful Japanese kumquat that I've just enjoyed since she debuted. I want to say 2.5 years now. So Asuka's been very good. And then there's my wife, Ria Ripley. Ria, if you're watching, hello.
Wishful thinking.
Yep, very, very wishful. But it's going to be interesting because Rhea and Asuka are both strong style, but it's Japanese strong style versus Australian, Australian, New Zealand strong style. So it's going to be an interesting style. It's definitely going to be better than, and I'm going to say this, it's definitely going to be better than Rhea and Charlotte last year. So I'm calling, even though Kevin and Sami is going to be probably my favorite match, I really think that this one's going to be the match of Sunday night, Rhea versus Asuka. And I could see definitely Rhea defeating Asuka that night.
Wow. Okay. New champion in the makings, according to Rob, our new insider here. Okay. Main event caliber match, probably the main event on Sunday, you would say, correct?
I would say it would be.
Yeah, it's a triple threat match. Of course, the returning Edge. You and I were joking before the segment of how old's Edge now?
Old.
But he looks much better than the two of us who are much younger than him.
Well, I mean, listen, Edge deserves all the credit in the world.
Exactly, coming back from a neck injury, right?
He has the neck injury, plus he was in the fantastic 2020 film Money Plane, cheap plug, and a character on the Vikings. So, good for Edge coming back. He's got Beth Phoenix as his wife. So Edge is doing the Lord's work.
I think he has a couple of girls with her, if I'm not mistaken. He's a family man now, as they say.
Good Toronto boy, Devils fan, by the way.
Oh God, well, yeah. I knew there was something I didn't like about him, but different story.
I just had to throw that in there.
All right, so Edge taking on Daniel Bryan versus the champion, who I think is so much of a better heel than he is a face, and that's of course Roman Reigns.
It's amazing what you can do when you put Paul Heyman with a guy.
It's very, very true.
It's amazing. I mean,
very, very true.
Paul Heyman could sell me my own death, and I'd be cool with it. But I mean, Roman Reigns, this new character that he's debuted since after SummerSlam, the chieftain, the head of the table, has been really, really good, really, really strong work he's been pulling in. Daniel Bryan, ever since coming back from his neck injury, has been really good to watch. Daniel Bryan is always good, and then Edge winning the 2021 Royal Rumble is really a good thing for him because he's coming back, he's stronger, and it's also showing that one thing that I'm going to say is it's time to let the young guys sort of thrive and experience life and get the shot, because eventually guys like Edge, guys like Randy Orton, guys like, look at it. We had the Undertaker's retirement last year.
Right.
They're not going to be around forever. I mean, one of my favorite jokes is AJ Styles is 43. And AJ Styles is wrestling like he's in his
He looks
prime,
great. Absolutely.
But
phenomenal.
He's
pun intended.
But he's going to eventually not be there. And when you've got guys like, Garza and Umberto and all these other people, you need to kind of push them along. So with this, it's kind of, I would keep it on Roman just because of how good Roman's been doing. It's hard for me to say that because I love Edge as a person and Daniel Bryan is a fantastic human being, but at this point, I just think it makes the most sense to keep it on Roman.
Interesting. Okay. Well, Rob Tonneson, your first show, you still feel good?
I always feel good.
That's good to hear. Our Pro Wrestling Insider, hopefully we'll have him back, maybe talking about a little AEW or any other WWE event that's coming up in the future.
Of course. I will love to talk that. By the way, this is my second appearance on the show.
That's right. We forgot.
Appearance.
Folks, we're going to put it right at the bottom of your screen when we were at WrestleMania 2 years ago?
35,
at
yes.
MetLife Stadium. That's right. I can't believe it's 37 now. And Rob was a little inebriated, but it was his second appearance. His first appearance as our Pro Wrestling Insider. And by the way, WrestleMania start time for Sunday is 7 p.m. only on Peacock.
Yeah, Peacock. That's a thing. You can get the WWE Network and The Office.
on Peacock. All right, Rob. Thanks again. We look forward to having you in the future.
Pleasure, sir.
Folks, today's show was brought to you by the Liberty Board of Realtors. You can find out more information about our friends there at the link at the bottom of your screen. And also the Dream Project. Again, you can find out more information from our friends at the Dream Project at the link at the bottom of your screen. I'm Peter Biancamano. Join us next week for The Pulse on everything you need to know. Have a great week, everybody.
The Pulse with Peter B. is a proud partner of Eyes on NJ.